Okay, students, I'm going to show you two different ways to graph piecewise functions on your graphing calculator. Depending on the type of graphing calculator you have, that's why I'm showing you two different versions. If you have an older graphing calculator, it might be a regular TI-84 or a TI-83. And those are obviously much cheaper and they do pretty much the same things. You just have to learn different conditions and what you plug in. So if you have an older one, you might need to do it this way. Okay, here's what it is. I've just rewritten it over here. Notice I've put in parentheses around the numerator because you have more than one term in there. It's just safe. If you want to be safe all the time, you can always put parentheses around the pieces. These are the three pieces: y equals x plus 8, y equals x squared, and y equals 1 minus x. And then you separate it. What your domain is going to be with a division sign. That's why you see the division sign right there. Okay. And then I put in parentheses to be safe again. My conditions are I'm only going to graph that line x plus 8 when x is less than or negative 1. In the second equation, I'm going to graph y equals x squared. Again, I have the division sign to put my domain in there. This time, I'm graphing it from negative 1 to greater than negative 1 and less than 2. And then I couldn't get the equal signs to show up right there. On this to put it on the screen here. It's on the graphing calculator, and I'll show you that in just a second. You can see the equals right there. Okay, and then the last one is y equals 1 minus x. There's my division sign again, and then parentheses x greater than 2. And I'll graph those three pieces. So the old school way is you got to put each one on a separate line: y sub 1, y sub 2, y sub 3. Okay, I'm not going to then type that in. I'm going to show you the newer way. If you have an 84 plus, etc., it's even simpler. Okay, by the way, where you get these inequality symbols on your graphing calculator, I have right here. To get the inequality symbols, you hit second math, which then above that word math it says test, and then you'll see them. Okay, and then if you want to see the words and or, after you get to the second math, then move over to the word logic, and you'll see the words and or. Okay, now the newer way, and all the newer graphing calculators will have this one, is all I have to do is hit the math one. So it's not second math, just math, and then go down to B. And it says piecewise, so they've added that in there. Okay, when you get that, when you click that piecewise, it's going to ask you by default 3 pieces. I'm going to hit the left arrow to move down to 2 pieces. Then I'm going to go ahead and hit the down arrow to change it to OK, and then hit enter. When I do that, it's going to give me 4 of these boxes. They're all dotted. Okay, I'm just drawing boxes, but they'd be dotted like that right there. Okay, and it's just asking you to fill those in. The equation that you want right here, and this is my domain, just like we did above. Okay, remember above you put a division sign in between. They have a semicolon now. So this is the equation that you're looking to graph on the left side. Okay, and the domain goes on the right. And so up here in this y sub 1, and now notice they're all going to go in y sub 1 instead of 3 separate y sub 1, 2, and 3 like we did above. You can put it all into 1 now. So I'm going to type these in. They put the first 3 conditions in here. So I'm going down to 2 because there's only 2 curves I'm graphing. I'm graphing the line y equals negative x. Remember, we're going to use the negative symbol since it's the first term, not the minus symbol. We use negative. Remember, see the negative is shorter. See that compared to the minus sign right there? That negative is shorter. That's how we know that. Also, we see this is a negative out here. We see it's a shorter one than the minus sign. I talked about this in class already. So if you get an error when you try to graph it, it's probably because you used a minus sign instead of a negative sign. Okay, so watch when I type it in the calculator. The fourth one I showed you here, so you see what it'll look like right here. We'll be filling that in, and that will be x is greater than or equal to 1. Okay, I just didn't fill it in yet so you can see what it looks like. Actually, I think I have it all filled in now. I'm going to retype it down below so you can see it, because that way it's easier for me. I don't have to switch back and forth on the screens to see these conditions and all that. So let me bring up the graphing calculator, and you'll see that I have them already graphed in there. So I can I don't have to flip back and forth to the other screen to see what the equations and conditions are. So I'm just going to retype it so you can see it from scratch in y sub 2. Then I'll go ahead and delete out y sub 1. So remember, you hit math, you go down to B, piecewise. We want to switch it down to 2, so we hit the left arrow down to 2, and we go down arrow to OK. That's what we want. You can have up to 5 pieces in there. There's those 4 boxes I just showed you. We're going to now type that in. Remember, the first number to type in is negative next to this decimal. Negative x. My condition is x is less than 1. Now I'm going to hit second math for the test, and I can go over the conditions. I want x is less than, and I'll type that right in there for me, and then 1. Go down, do this one now. Remember, that's a negative sign, so negative parentheses x minus now 1 quantity squared plus 4. And what are those conditions? We want x is greater than or equal to 1. So I'm going to go the conditions, second test, which is the second math, which is the test. Go over to conditions, and we want x is greater than or equal to. And we want 1 again right there. Now I hit enter a few times, make sure it's over there, and then hit enter again, and I'll drop it down to y sub 3. When you get it down to there, well, yours will be y sub 2 because you know, this y sub 1 would be whatever you fill it in with. But you need to get your cursor down to here before you hit graph. Okay, so now see how these equal signs are highlighted. That means it's going to graph both of those. Y sub 1 would be in blue, those conditions. Y sub 2 would be in red. That's the newest version of the calculators. They color code your curves. Now, like I said, I can take out this one. So I can either delete it out, or I can just go on top of this right here, hit enter, and notice it unhighlights that equal sign. That means when I hit graph, it's only going to graph the ones that have a darkened equal sign. So even though all this information is in here, it will not graph it at all. That's another thing to know. If you did not know that, it'll only graph the ones that have a darkened equal sign. So now I hit graph, and notice it's in red because my entire condition is in red in this y sub 2. Okay. So there's that right there. Now, if I could still use that old school way, and I could also just clear that one out right there. Let's see, there it is, gone. Still going to graph the same thing because that was not highlighted for the equal sign. Okay, so there's nothing to graph in y sub 1. Now, I could have gone back also and done the 3 individual pieces like I showed you in the top piece, and then you'd see each piece individually graphed. Okay, if I had y sub 1 as one piece, y sub 2 another, y sub 3 another, you see 1 in blue, 1 in red, and 1 in black. That, I guess, if you want to look at it, would be an advantage if you put it into 3 separate pieces, but this is much quicker for you just to type in like this, using the math B, which says piecewise. That's the quickest way to type it in. Okay, and then there's what your curve will look like. Now, how do I know what those points are? I need to go to my table. See how this is highlighted right here? Second graph shows you above that is table. And here are all my points I can plot. So I have my XYT chart right here. I can go up and down and get whatever values I need to. And those are the points that you plot. Now, the only thing that this does not show is holes. Okay, remember it's an open circle versus a closed circle. So I have to go back to my conditions right here and notice the negative x line. What's that negative? That's this one right here, right? That's the slope of -1 going through the origin. That right there, notice that does not equal 1. So at 1, I would have an open circle. Right there, I'd have to put an open circle. That's the one thing that the graphing calculator won't show you. So that one right there would be an open circle, and that up there would be the closed circle. That way it still passes the vertical line test as far as being a function. Okay? All right, that will cover everything you need to know about graphing piecewise functions. Of course, you have to remember the steps. I can sit there and show you steps. I can have them printed out on paper like I'm going to give you, but you still have to memorize them to put in the calculator. So that's why you need to practice this at home and in class, and not just trying to get the answer off somebody and copying it down. That's not going to help you if you don't have your steps memorized. All right.